today to do a short video about the attempted assassination of President Trump, a little bit about what Kabbalah and Hasidus has to say behind these events, some deeper lessons in our service of God, to strengthen our faith, and to kind of a little bit explain a little bit behind the scenes behind these events. So actually there is a lot that the Lubavitcher Rebbe discussed shortly after the attempted assassination of President Reagan. So we're going to bring that a little bit about John Hinckley Jr. And the investigation of the recent events is still ongoing. So in that case, with John Hinckley, he was trying to live out a fictional reality. So we're going to talk about how to, it's called rectify the blemish of the power of imagination. And we're going to explain what that means. So in Hebrew, the term is koach hamedameh, the power of imagination. And that has the same value as one of the four main sins that are recounted in the Torah, in the Bible. And that's, I'll link to this class from my teacher, Rabbi Yitzchak Ginsburg, that explains this. It's and that's Egel HaZahav, the golden calf. So actually yesterday we commemorated this as a fast day, because on the 17th of the month of Tammuz, which was yesterday, Moses came down after spending 40 days, 40 nights on the mountain, came down and saw that they were worshiping this golden calf. He broke the tablets, and so as everyone pretty much knows, then he went back up. But this is a huge thing, and the fact that the gematria, the numerical value in Hebrew, is the same as koach hamedameh, the power of imagination. The sages teach that, and we understand, as Rabbi Ginsburg explains, that there's a relationship here. And so we're going to understand, we're going to explain that relationship. So I'm just going to read and then explain. This is from some lectures given by Rabbi Ginsburg in the past. So koach hamedameh is a two-word phrase, which is literally the power of imagination. It means mistaken association of the mind, which is sometimes referred to as katnut mochin, which is either small-mindedness or seeing things in a superficial way, understanding reality in a superficial way, or as we'll see, making false connections. Small-mindedness, which is the source of superstition or false beliefs, the person makes false connections, false associations. He has misconceptions about reality, and he takes these misconceptions seriously. So we saw this with John Hinckley Jr., the attempted assassin of President Reagan, is that he was trying to act out, essentially, a character in a movie called Taxi Driver. So I'm sure many of you know about the story there. But taking the fictional reality seriously, and we can abstract that to taking any superficial, any false notion of reality that we think is to be true, but it's not. And so that's called katnut mochin, which is small-mindedness. So we want to go to expansive-minded, to be able to see things clearly and openly. So how do we transition from that? As we are explaining, we have to first have proper association just to see things clearly. And so we're going to explain. He thinks that this is reality, but he's in a state of semi-hallucination or dreaming. And that's what the golden calf is all about. Also a hallucination that Moses was being carried in a coffin in heaven and that he's dead. This is the imagination of koach hamedameh. So this is a clear, this is according to Kabbalah and Hasidic thought, that a person that has a blemish, it has this power, this difficulty in their making proper associations, and has misconceptions of reality, even maybe living a dream state or a movie state, a false state, also could be led to have fantasies about killing a king, about political assassination. And that's exactly what we see, is that unfortunately, in the most extreme cases, that a person that is living some type of a fictional reality is then led to think about fantasizing about killing whatever leader they can kill. Again, not because necessarily of any political bents or policy issues. We're talking here about the fantasy of killing a leader. And so we said that the drive to make the golden calf essentially was to, and this is actually what it was, to replace Moses as the leader. As crazy as it sounds, how can a golden calf replace Moses? But this is what came to their mind. And if Moses is dead, we have to immediately substitute him with something else. What is that? That's the golden calf. Once more, the golden calf is the disconnection from Moses, because Moses relates to das, to knowledge, a great mature mind. As we said, to go from a small-mindedness to a great, expansive, a broad way, a deep way of looking at the world. Being disconnected from Moses is katnut mochin, is this small-minded, superficial, incorrect, ultimately, way of looking at the world. And it's just entering a state of imagination of making these false associations. And that's exactly what happened. That's what happened with the golden calf, and that's what happened in the case of Reagan's attempted assassin. Just making these false and incorrect associations. So we see clearly that it relates to this idea, someone who's living a fictional reality, this connection to maybe perhaps be led to have fantasize about killing a leader. And we said again, this is relates to the numerical value of koach medameh, the power of imagination, which again, if not done in the correct way, can be living a movie, living a false reality, and the equaling of that value of koach medameh, of power of imagination, to the golden calf, Egel hazahav. To heal someone of their paranoia, for instance, you have to put them in touch with reality, show them what's really going on, and get them to admit that the rest is a flight of fancy. So how do you do this? How do you extract a person, educate them from this fictional reality that they've submerged themselves in? To succeed, a lot of hard work is needed. Knowledge, das, is akin to a deep reflection of reality. So you have to deepen their connection to truth, to the real reality. The intellectual faculties of the mind, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, are described as the three dimensions of length, breadth, and depth. And knowledge is depth. So you have to help them to deepen their connection with the truth of reality. What are the delusions that imagination gives rise to? They are the shallow and external assessment of reality. How can you show someone who is certain that everyone hates him that he is lost in delusions? The only way is to help him deepen his understanding of reality. So a person that sees a movie and he sees himself as a person in the movie, and he's trying to act it out. And so to tell him that the movie is just fictional reality is not going to help. You have to sit and to train a person to think deeply about reality. And that's what Kabbalah and Hasidic thought, that's what all of Torah teaches a person, is to see beyond the surface and to see deeper into reality. And as we'll explain, that's through Moses, through the humblest of all men, the humblest of all. We have to be humbled. It's if the ego is running rampant, then what happens is that we think that we can make these associations. We think that our imagination is correct. But if we connect to the true leader, to Moses, to the leaders, the Torah leaders of each generation, then we're able to make correct connections with reality. Okay, let's go on. In order to attain depth, one has to be humble like Moses. This is the quality of the sphere of Das, of knowledge. If you are able to teach someone, train them to be deep, that is the rectification of knowledge. That is the way to extract a person from their delusions. All the delusions are a result of interpreting reality in a shallow manner. These are all shallow interpretations that have no real connection with reality, conclusions that have no real basis, and it is all the result of being shallow-minded. So we're saying here again is that a person seems to be living in this fictional reality, having all these crazy thoughts, right? And ultimately, maybe even thoughts about, in Hinckley's case, it led to this terrible outcome of the attempted assassination of President Reagan. We have to help people much earlier on. If we see a person that's struggling to see reality in a clear way, right, to make sense of reality, if they're coming up with all types of false associations, and with all types of false fears and paranoia, and all types of misconceptions about the true nature of reality, we have to sit with them and learn with them. That's what that means. To connect them to the Torah of Moses, and all of the Torah is the Torah of Moses, because Moses gave us the Torah. So the deepening of knowledge, that helps a person to truly understand reality. Imagine this is about association, likening one thing to another. One thing happened and another thing happened, and perhaps they're connected. Something happened, and then I heard another thing on the radio. If this becomes a mental illness, then one begins to think that the radio is talking to them personally, right? So maybe this is we can imagine that this relates to paranoia, to schizophrenia, but it all stems initially from this feeling of that I can make associations, right? Without Moses, right? I don't need to be humbled. I know how to make proper associations, but a person's fooling themselves, and how we know that they're ultimately is because they're living a fictional life. They're making all types of crazy things up that have no basis in reality. And so as soon as we can, we find these people, we should sit down and to help them to see reality in a deeper, clear way, to make positive and true associations. The general problem is that a person takes unconnected points and draws lines to connect them, imaginary lines that have no basis. This is how insanity begins, all because there is no real connection with reality and no truly deep knowledge, right? So we all know of, you see one thing, you see another thing, and you make these connections. And for most of us, we're not basing our life on it. Like maybe this conspiracy is real, maybe it's not, but then we move on with our lives. But for people that are fixated on this, they really think that they're like modern day prophets or something like that. And they feel like they're making these associations that no one else is making. They're seeing things that no one else is seeing. And so that's really unhealthy. It's really, we have to, as much as possible, to reach out to if we are in a position to help these people, it's definitely praiseworthy to do so. Another statement by the sages is that if there is no knowledge, there can be no differentiation. So a person, again, sees a movie and they aren't able to differentiate between an actor playing a role and the character in the movie, right? And between themselves and the character in the movie. So it's inability to differentiate. Knowledge is the power to differentiate, to recognize the difference between phenomena. As we said, when knowledge is deep, no false connections or associations are created. It means that one does not drive oneself crazy by finding all types of flimsy connections between what one heard on the street and what one saw on an internet site. You need to be able to differentiate. So let's read a little bit more, because there is positive divine providence, right? divine intervention, as we saw with very clearly with Trump turning his head. Again, we're not saying that we're not analyzing it. We're not trying to understand why God intervened. We're just seeing clearly that this was a clear hand of God, as it said. God doesn't have any hands, anything like that. But clearly divine intervention. And that's a positive thing. And why is that acceptable? Whereas if we hear something on the radio, see something on the internet, see someone on the street, it may not be helpful to make connections between all of these things. So let's explain that. The only acceptable types of insight are those that lead one to give thanks to God for what the person has seen, or those that cause him to rectify something in his conduct out of a sense of joyful return to God, and nothing else. So it's, again, the only reason to make connections and associations is because it's deepening and strengthening our service of God. That's it. There needs to be very strong reasons to associate or tie two things together, just like when the sages teach about links in the Torah, a text known as Gezerah Shava, to make associations with two things, connections between two things. Such links are only true if they have a tradition that runs back to Moses. So seeing the connection or association between two phenomena requires a special sensitivity that not everyone has. This sensitivity can be described as the ability to draw correct parallels. As is well known, the word Kabbalah literally derives from the word parallels, to make parallels. Not everyone can do this properly, and certainly not when they still see reality from a shallow perspective. So what we're saying, again, let's wrap up here, is that living in a fantasy is called a blemished koach medameh, a power of imagination, which is equal. The gematria, the Hebrew numerical value, is equal to Egel Zahav, the golden calf. And it's ultimately the desire to replace Moses, to replace the leader, the humblest of all men. And the rectification for living in a fantasy life, a superficial, maybe living out a movie, a character in a movie, or to try to be, to replace one leader with another leader, or something related to political influence, anything like that. The rectification for that is to study the Torah of Moses and to deepen one's view of reality, one's understanding of reality, to make, and in that case, we can make positive associations. And associations in that, it's bringing us and others closer to God. Because there is divine providence, there is divine intervention. And it's important to acknowledge that, but it's not to fixate on it, and not to think that we're modern day prophets, and not to be so hard set on thinking that we're making associations that no one else is, because it needs to be connected to great humility. And this is taught from the Torah sages, and we need to be able to source it in Torah. So with that, I hope that was helpful. Hope that was a good introduction to the topic of making positive associations. Obviously, to acknowledge Hashem, acknowledge God at the right times and in the times that are appropriate, and even to make positive associations when it's contributing in our service of God and helping others. And so ultimately, we have to be on the lookout if others could stand to be helped, to be assisted. It doesn't take much just to sit and learn Torah with them, especially the inner dimension of Torah as taught in Kabbalah and Chassidus. Thank you so much. Thank you. Take care.